Yun and her classmates fought their way through the hall. Their small group had managed to defeat the draconian soldiers, but more would come soon. "We need to find a safe place," Yun said, catching her breath. Tae-yun looked at a map of the academy on the wall. "All the normal exits will be washed. We need an exit that's not on the map," said a red-skinned girl named Yuri. Yun closed her eyes. More memories were coming back. She remembered this building from long ago, before it was a school. "There's an old maintenance tunnel," she said. "It leads to a bunker under the east field. I think I helped build it. A long time ago." The students stared at her. "You helped build the academy?" Tae-yun asked. "This wasn't always a school," Hae-yun explained. "It was a military base during the war. My war." She led them to a storage room. Behind some old boxes, she found a small door hidden in the wall. It was locked with an ancient keypad. Hae-yun's fingers moved without thinking, typing in a code. The door slid open. "How did you remember that code after 300 years?" Yuri asked. Hae-yun shrugged. "I'm remembering more every minute." They crawled through the narrow tunnel. It was dark and dusty. No one had used it in centuries. After 10 minutes, they reached another door. Beyond it was a large room filled with old computers and metal boxes. "What is this place?" Tae-yun asked, looking around. "My command center," Hae-yun said. "Or it was. Now it's just a bunker." She walked to one of the computers. Surprisingly, it still worked when she turned it on. The screen glowed with a logo Hae-yun remembered. "The Alliance Special Forces. Look for anything useful," she told the others. "Weapons, communications, anything." While the students searched the bunker, Hae-yun accessed the old computer files. Her fingerprints still worked on the scanner. "Welcome back, General Park," the computer said. Files appeared on the screen. Battle plans, mission reports, records of wars fought centuries ago. Tae-yun was looking over her shoulder. Is that a report about my planet?" Hae-yun nodded. "The Lyrian campaign. Your people were under draconian control. We freed your world." She opened the file. It showed pictures of Lyrian cities being liberated by Alliance forces. Lyrians cheering as draconian ships were driven away. "But my father said you destroy our cities," Tae-yun said, confused. "Your father was wrong," Hae-yun said. "Look." She showed him a video. A younger Hae-yun was speaking to Alliance officials. "I refuse to bomb the Lyrian capital," her younger self said in the video. "There are millions of innocent people there. We will find another way." Tae-yun watched in silence. Another file showed Hae-yun stopping the execution of Lyrian leaders. "They were forced to serve the Draconians," she said in the video. "They deserve mercy." "That's my grandfather," Tae-yun whispered, pointing to one of the Lyrians being saved. "He would have been killed." "You wouldn't exist if I had followed my orders," Hae-yun said softly. Tae-yun looked at her with new eyes. "Why didn't you tell this story? Why did you let people call you the Destroyer?" "History is written by those with the loudest voices," Hae-yun said. "I didn't care what they called me. I only cared about saving lives." The other students gathered around, looking at more files. "You stopped the Arcani from using planet-killer weapons," Yuri said, reading a report. "And you protected refugee ships when others wanted to leave them behind," another student added. Hae-yun felt strange seeing her pass through their eyes. For centuries, she had been painted as a monster, a destroyer of worlds. But the truth was in these files. "You weren't destroying empires," Ju said, walking into the bunker through another entrance. "You were saving people from them." Hae-yun smiled. "We need to get this truth out. But first, we need to survive." Suddenly, alarms blared from the old computer. "Warning. Intruders detected. Bunker security breached." The Draconians had found them. 2 weeks passed at Galactic Academy. Hae-yun sat alone in the combat simulation room. The other students had finished their tests and left. She was the last one. "Begin simulation," she said. The room changed around her. She was now standing on a battlefield. 10 enemy soldiers charged toward her. Hei-yun didn't know why, but she knew exactly what to do. She moved with speed and skill she didn't know she had. Her body seemed to remember things her mind did not. In 3 minutes, all 10 enemies were defeated. Simulation complete, the computer said. New high score. Hei-yun stared at her hands. How did she do that? She had never fought before coming to the academy. That was impressive. Hei-yun turned. A girl with purple skin and white hair stood in the doorway. She was half human, half Proxian. "I'm Ju," the girl said. "I've never seen anyone beat that simulation so fast." "I'm Hei-yun. I don't know how I did it. It just happened." Ju smiled. "Well, it was amazing. Want to get lunch?" Hei-yun nodded, happy to finally have someone to talk to. In the dining hall, they found a quiet corner. Ju told Hei-yun about her human father and Proxian mother. Being mixed species, Ju didn't fit in either. "The other students don't like different," Ju said. "That's why they're hard on you. Humans are still new to them." As they talked, Tae-hyun and his friends walked by. He stopped at their table. "Look at this," he said loudly. The human found another misfit. Hei-yun's face grew hot. "Leave us alone, Tae-hyun. I heard you cheated in the combat simulation," he said. "No human could score that high without cheating." "I didn't cheat," Hei-yun said. "Humans are weak," Tae-hyun said. "Everyone knows that." Something snapped in Hei-yun. She stood up. "Is that what you think? Then challenge me. Right now. Any test you want." The dining hall went quiet. Tae-hyun looked surprised, then smiled. "Fine. Strategy class. After lunch." In strategy class, Teacher Min set up a war game. Hei-yun and Tae-hyun would each lead a virtual army against the other. "Begin," Teacher Min said. Hei-yun looked at the map. Strange images flashed in her mind. She saw battles from long ago. She heard voices giving orders. Without thinking, she moved her forces in ways she had never been taught. 20 minutes later, Tae-hyun's army was trapped. His face showed shock and anger as Hei-yun's forces closed in from all sides. "Victory to Hei-yun," Teacher Min announced. He looked at her strangely. "That strategy, it's very advanced. Where did you learn it?" I'm not sure," Hei-yun said. "It just came to me." Later that day, in history class, Teacher Jun showed images of the Draconian War. The fleet that ended the Draconian Empire was led by a mysterious commander. Teacher Jun said, "Some say it was a human, but that's impossible. Humans hadn't joined the alliance yet." As the teacher showed a picture of the battle, Hei-yun felt dizzy. In her mind, she was standing on a ship's bridge, giving orders. She could feel the ship moving under her feet. She could hear the sounds of battle. "Hei-yun, are you okay?" Ju whispered. Hei-yun blinked. The vision was gone. "I need to see the doctor," she whispered back. In the medical bay, Dr. Do-yoon scanned Hei-yun's brain. His eyes grew wide as he looked at the results. "This is strange," he said. "Your neural patterns are unusual. It's like there are memories hidden deep in your mind. Very old memories." "What does that mean?" Hei-yun asked. Dr. Do-yoon shook his head. "I don't know, but I think someone has tampered with your memories." Hei-yun felt cold fear run through her body. Who would do that? And why? The bunker walls shook as Alliance ships landed outside. Commander Minji's voice came through the speakers. "General Park, we're here. Are you and the students safe?" "We're alive," Hei-yun answered, "but we have company." She looked at Warlord Jinwoo, who stood with his soldiers. Everyone waited for what would happen next. The bunker's outer door opened. Commander Minji entered with 20 Alliance soldiers, weapons ready. They aimed at the Draconians. "Drop your weapons," Commander Minji ordered. Warlord Jinwoo raised his hand, signaling his soldiers not to fight. I wish to see more of these records before I decide what to do. There won't be any more fighting today, He-Yun said firmly. She stepped between the two groups. 300 years ago, I ended a war. I won't start a new one now. The Alliance soldiers lowered their weapons when Commander Minji nodded. The academy is secure, Commander Minji reported. The other students are safe. Director Kang is waiting for you. He-Yun turned to Warlord Jinwoo. Come with us peacefully. See the full truth. Then decide what kind of leader you want to be. After a long moment, Warlord Jinwoo handed his weapon to He-Yun. My people believe you are a monster who destroyed our empire. I need to know if that's true. History isn't always simple, He-Yun said. Neither are people. They all walked out of the bunker together. The academy grounds were filled with Alliance ships. Medical teams were helping injured students. Teachers were counting heads, making sure everyone was safe. Director Kang rushed over when he saw He-Yun. Thank the stars you're alive. Then he saw Warlord Jinwoo. You brought a draconian leader here. He came for revenge, but stayed for the truth, He-Yun explained. A large ship landed nearby. Governor Hyunsuk stepped out, looking worried. When he saw Tae-Yun, he ran to him. My son, are you hurt? He asked, checking Tae-Yun for injuries. I'm fine, father, Tae-Yun said. Thanks to He-Yun. She protected us. She saved my life. Governor Hyunsuk looked confused. The human girl. The destroyer. She's not what we thought, Tae-Yun said. She showed me records from the war. She saved our people, including great-grandfather. She refused to bomb our cities when ordered to. Is this true? Governor Hyunsuk asked He-Yun. She nodded. I never wanted to destroy, only to stop those who would destroy others. Over the next few days, the truth spread. The old records from He-Yun's bunker were shared with leaders from many worlds. The story of the destroyer began to change. Many who had feared her name now learned a different story. Warlord Jinwoo was placed under Alliance protection, not as a prisoner but as a guest. He spent hours reviewing the historical records. My ancestors lied. He finally admitted to He-Yun. Emperor Darren would have killed billions with his weapon. You stopped him. And now you can lead your people better than he did, He-Yun told him. 1 month later, the academy held a special ceremony. Students gathered in the main hall, no longer divided by species or prejudice. Director Kang stood at the front. Today we honor truth over legend, understanding over fear. He unveiled a new statue in the academy garden. It showed He-Yun not as a warrior but as a protector, with one hand extended in peace. The plaque read, General He-Yun Park, not the destroyer, but the preserver. Tae-Hyun, now He-Yun's friend, stood beside her at the ceremony. Will you stay at the academy? He asked. Yes, He-Yun said. I have so much to learn and to teach. She looked around at her classmates. The same students who once looked at her with disdain now looked at her with respect. Not because she had once destroyed empires, but because they now knew why. Besides, she added with a smile, I haven't finished my homework yet. Tae-Hyun laughed. Even ancient generals had to do their homework. And so He-Yun continued her new life, carrying the wisdom of her old one. A human girl who had faced disdain from her classmates, who never knew she had once changed the galaxy, not by what she destroyed, but by what she saved. The hallways of Galactic Academy fell silent as He-Yun walked through the main entrance. Her simple black uniform stood out among the colorful clothing of the alien students. She kept her eyes down, counting the tiles on the floor as she moved forward. That's the new human, someone whispered. The word human sounded like an insult. He-Yun took a deep breath. She knew this would be hard. Humans were new to the Interstellar Alliance. Most alien races saw them as weak and primitive, but she never thought the looks would be this cold. The year was 2487. 50 years had passed since Earth joined the Alliance. Humans were still trying to prove their worth among the stars. A tall blue-skinned boy stepped in front of He-Yun. His silver eyes looked down at her with disgust. "I am Taehyun of the Lyrian High Council," he said. "You're in my way." Haehyun stepped aside. "Sorry, I'm Haehyun. I'm new here." "We know what you are," Taehyun said. His friends laughed behind him. "Try not to touch anything important. Humans break things." Haehyun's face burned, but she said nothing. She had promised her parents she would not cause trouble. Getting into Galactic Academy was a rare honor for a human. She couldn't mess this up. An older man with gray hair and kind eyes approached. He wore the black and gold uniform of the Academy staff. "Welcome, Haehyun Park," he said. "I am Director Kang." We spoke over the comm system. Taehyun's eyes widened. The Academy director rarely greeted new students personally. "Thank you, sir," Haehyun said. "Come to my office. We'll get you settled." Director Kang smiled at her, then gave Taehyun a stern look. "I expect all students to show proper respect to their peers, regardless of species." Taehyun bowed slightly, but his eyes remained cold. "Of course, Director." As Haehyun followed Director Kang, she heard whispers behind her. Why is Kang being so nice to a human? Maybe he lost a bet. Or maybe he's going crazy in his old age. Director Kang's office was filled with strange artifacts from across the galaxy. Haehyun's eyes were drawn to a small metal sphere on his desk. Without thinking, she reached out to touch it. The moment her fingers brushed the surface, a flash of memory hit her. Stars exploding, ships burning, a fleet following her commands. She pulled her hand back quickly. "Are you all right?" Director Kang asked, watching her closely. "Yes," Haehyun said, rubbing her fingers. "Just a shock or something." Director Kang nodded slowly. "That happens sometimes. This is a very old artifact." He handed her a small tablet. "This has your schedule and a map of the Academy. Your first class is Ancient Galactic History with Teacher Jun. The humans in your history books might surprise you." Haehyun thanked him and left his office. As she walked to her first class, she wondered why she had imagined herself commanding a fleet of ships. She had never even been on a military vessel before. When she reached the classroom, all eyes turned to her. Teacher Jun, a short woman with bright red skin, pointed to an empty seat near the back. "Class, this is Haehyun Park from Earth. She will be joining us for the semester." No one said hello. Taehyun and his friends were sitting in the front row. He turned to look at her with narrowed eyes. "Today we will be discussing the fall of the Draconian Empire," Teacher Jun said. "One of the greatest military campaigns in galactic history." Haehyun opened her tablet and tried to focus. But as Teacher Jun described the battle strategies used against the Draconians, Haehyun felt strange, like she had heard this story before, like she had been there. She shook her head. That was impossible. The Draconian Empire fell 300 years ago. The glowing sword felt right in Haehyun's hand. The Draconian soldiers moved closer, their weapons pointed at the students. "Give us the destroyer," their leader demanded. Haehyun stepped forward. "I don't know who that is, but you need to leave these students alone." The leader laughed. "You don't even know who you are, do you?" Haehyun felt something break inside her mind. Like a dam holding back water, it suddenly gave way. Memories flooded in. Hundreds of battles. Thousands of faces. Centuries of war. She remembered. "I am General Haehyun Park," she said in a voice that echoed with power. "And you are trespassing." The Draconian leader stepped back in shock. "It is her, the destroyer lives." Haehyun moved with speed no student should have. Her sword cut through the air, blocking shots fired at the students. She knocked 3 soldiers down before anyone could blink. Commander Minji and her team joined the fight. Together, they pushed the Draconians back toward the entrance. "Fall back," the Draconian leader ordered. "We need reinforcements." The soldiers retreated to their ships. The academy was safe for now. Haehyun turned to find everyone staring at her. Ju, Taehyun, the other students, all looked at her with fear and wonder. Who are you? Tae-yun asked again. Hae-yun looked at Director Kang. I think it's time for the truth. In the director's office, Hae-yun stood tall as memories continued to return. Ju-woo and Tae-yun were there too. They deserved to know. My name is General Hae-yun Park, she said, or it was 300 years ago. I led the alliance forces against 3 evil empires that were destroying worlds and killing innocent people. Director Kang nodded. She was the greatest military leader the galaxy had ever seen. The alliance was losing the war until she took command. But how are you here? Ju asked. How are you so young? Commander Minji explained. After the wars, General Park wanted peace. She was tired of fighting. But many feared her power and wanted her dead. Others wanted to use her as a weapon. So we made a deal, Director Kang said. Her consciousness was preserved. Her memories were locked away. She was given a new body, a new life. She would live as a normal girl, free from war. Until now, Hae-yun said. She looked at her hands. They were the hands of a teenager, but they had once commanded fleets that destroyed worlds. The destroyer, Tae-yun whispered. My father told me stories about you. You killed thousands of Lyrians. No, Hae-yun said firmly. I stopped the war, but I never targeted civilians. Your people were being used by the Draconian Empire. I saved many Lyrian worlds from destruction. Commander Minji nodded. She had orders to eliminate the entire Lyrian ruling class, but she refused. She said they could be allies if given the chance. Tae-yun looked confused. But my father said, history is often twisted by those who tell it, Director Kang said. Hae-yun was called the Destroyer by her enemies, but to many, she was a savior. What happens now? Ju asked. Those Draconians will be back. Hae-yun looked out the window at the stars. Her stars. The world she had fought to protect. Now I remember who I am, she said. But I'm still Hae-yun. I'm still your classmate. I'm still your friend, Ju-woo. And me? Tae-yun asked, his voice smaller than before. After how I treated you. Hae-yun smiled. I've forgiven far worse enemies than a proud boy with wrong information. Alarms sounded again. The Draconians were returning, with more ships. Will you fight? Director Kang asked Hae-yun. She looked at her fellow students, who now watched her with hope instead of disdain. Yes, she said, but not as the Destroyer. This time, I fight as Hae-yun Park, student of Galactic Academy. A large ship landed at Galactic Academy. Students lined up in the main hall, dressed in their best uniforms. Today was special. The Arcani Confederation was sending a diplomat to visit. Stand straight, Teacher Min told the students. Ambassador Sunwoo is very important. Hae-yun stood beside Ju-woo in the back row. Her head hurt from the strange dreams she had last night. Dreams of fire and battles and stars dying. Are you okay? Ju-woo asked. Just tired, Hae-yun said. I didn't sleep well. The doors opened. A tall man with golden skin walked in. He wore fancy clothes with many medals. This was Ambassador Sunwoo of the Arcani Confederation. Director Kang greeted him. Welcome to our academy, Ambassador. Ambassador Sunwoo smiled. Thank you, Director. I'm eager to meet your fine students. He walked slowly down the line, stopping to speak to some students. When he reached Tae-yun, he spent extra time talking to him. Your father is a good friend of mine, the ambassador said. He speaks highly of you. Hae-yun wasn't surprised. Tae-yun's father was an important governor. The ambassador continued down the line. When he came to Hae-yun, something strange happened. He looked at her face and stopped talking. His golden skin turned pale. Ambassador, are you well? Director Kang asked. Ambassador Sunwoo's hands shook. He stared at Hae-yun like he had seen a ghost. Who is this? He whispered. Hae-yun Park, from Earth, Director Kang said. One of our newest students. The ambassador stepped back. I must go. I feel ill suddenly. He turned and hurried out of the hall. Everyone looked confused. Taehyun glared at Haehyun as if this was her fault. Later, in her room, Haehyun tried to understand what had happened. Why had the ambassador reacted that way? Had he recognized her? That was impossible. She had never met him before. She lay down on her bed and closed her eyes. Sleep came quickly, but so did the dreams. In her dream, Haehyun stood on the bridge of a huge warship. She wore a uniform with many medals, like the ambassadors. People called her general and followed her orders without question. She was planning an attack on a planet. The planet was home to the Arcani Confederation. Haehyun woke up sweating. The dream had felt so real, like a memory, not a dream. There was a knock on her door. It was Ju-woo, looking excited. "I found something," she said, holding a small data disk. "Come with me." They snuck into the library after hours. Ju-woo plugged the disk into a computer. "I was looking through old military records for a history project," she explained. "And I found this." A picture appeared on the screen. It showed a human woman in a military uniform. The picture was old and unclear, but the woman looked a lot like Haehyun. "It says her name was the Destroyer," Ju-woo said. "She was a human military leader who fought in many battles 300 years ago. She defeated 3 empires, including the Draconians." Haehyun stared at the picture. "That's impossible. Humans weren't in space 300 years ago. And that can't be me. I'm only 16. "I know it's crazy," Ju said, "but look at her face, and it might explain why the ambassador acted so strange. The Arcani were allies with the Draconians in the old wars. A noise made them turn. Someone was trying to access the computer room next door. The screen showed a security alert. Unauthorized access to student files. Haehyun Park. Someone's trying to look at your personal files," Ju said. They peeked through the door. A dark figure was at the main computer. When an alarm sounded, the figure ran away. "What's going on?" Haehyun whispered. "Why would anyone care about my files?" Ju looked worried. "I don't know, but I think you might be in danger." Haehyun looked back at the picture of the Destroyer. The woman's eyes seemed to stare right at her, across 300 years of time. 5 people in gray uniforms arrived at the academy the next day. They said they were from the education board, here to check on the school. But Haehyun noticed how they watched her during lunch. "They're not from any education board," Ju whispered. "Look at their boots. Those are military boots." Haehyun saw that Ju was right. These people were soldiers, not teachers. The leader of the group was a woman with short black hair and cold eyes. Her name tag read, Commander Minji. After classes, Haehyun followed Commander Minji. She saw her enter Director Kang's office. Haehyun stood near the door to listen. "Is she safe?" Commander Minji asked. "For now," Director Kang said. "But Ambassador Sunwoo recognized her. It's only a matter of time before others do too. We have to protect her," Commander Minji said. "If the wrong people find out who she really is." Haehyun moved away from the door. Protect her. From what? Who did they think she was? She bumped into Taehyun in the hallway. "Watch where you're going, human," he said. Before Haehyun could answer, a tall man with silver eyes like Taehyun's approached them. He wore expensive clothes and looked important. "Father," Taehyun said with a bow. "What are you doing here?" "Governor Hyunseok," a teacher said with respect. "We didn't expect you today." Taehyun's father looked at Haehyun with cold eyes. "So this is the human girl? Ambassador Sunwoo told me about you." Haehyun felt afraid. "Sir, I don't know what he told you, but I want this girl removed from the academy," Governor Hyunseok said loudly. "She is a threat to the safety of all students." Director Kang arrived quickly. "Governor, please come to my office. We can discuss this privately." "There's nothing to discuss," the governor said. "I know who she is, what she is." Students gathered around, watching. Haehyun felt their eyes on her. What's happening? Ju asked, pushing through the crowd. Before anyone could answer, alarms began to sound throughout the academy. Security breach, a voice announced. Unknown ships approaching. All students report to safe rooms immediately. Through the windows, He-yun saw 3 ships land outside the academy. They were black with red markings. Men in armor ran out, carrying weapons. Draconians, Director Kang said in shock. How did they find us? The armored men blasted open the main doors. Students screamed and ran. Get to the safe rooms, teachers shouted. But He-yun didn't run. Something inside her took control. She looked around the room, seeing it like a battlefield. Ju-woo, get the younger students to the east wing, she said in a voice that didn't sound like her own. Tae-hyun, take 5 strong students and block the side entrance. Surprisingly, they listened to her. You 3, He-yun pointed to some older students, move those tables to block the main hall. Make a wall. Commander Minji appeared beside her. You remember, don't you? She asked quietly. I don't know what's happening, He-yun said, but I know what to do. The draconian soldiers entered the building. They fired weapons that made the walls shake. Where is she? Their leader shouted. Where is the destroyer? He-yun felt cold. They were looking for her. The students behind the tables looked terrified. He-yun stepped forward. Stay behind me, she told them. She didn't know why, but she wasn't afraid. Commander Minji handed her a small metal rod. You might need this. When He-yun touched it, the rod extended into a sword that glowed blue. Her hand knew how to hold it, how to move with it, like she had used it 1,000 times before. Who are you really? Tae-hyun asked, staring at her with new eyes. He-yun looked at the sword in her hand. I wish I knew. The bunker doors sealed automatically as the alarm sounded. He-yun rushed to the security screens. They showed a group of draconians cutting through the tunnel entrance. They'll be through in minutes, she said. Is there another way out? Tae-hyun asked. He-yun shook her head. No, this bunker was built to be the last stand. One way in, no way out. So we're trapped? Yuri asked, her voice shaking. We're protected, He-yun corrected. This bunker can withstand almost any attack. The question is, for how long? Ju-woo examined the old communication equipment. Can we call for help? Maybe, He-yun said. She sat at the main console and began typing quickly. This system uses very old codes. If Commander Minji is looking for us, she might be scanning for these signals. The metal door glowed red as the draconians cut through it from the other side. They had minutes at most. Everyone, find weapons, He-yun ordered. The students searched the bunker. They found old Alliance blasters and shields. Tae-hyun handed them out to each student. I never thought I'd fight beside a human, he said to He-yun. And I never thought Illyrian would help me, she replied with a small smile. The door began to break apart. He-yun stood in front, her sword ready. The students formed a line behind her, weapons raised. With a crash, the door fell. Draconian soldiers poured in, weapons firing. He-yun's sword moved like lightning, deflecting shots. The students fired back from behind old metal tables they had turned over for cover. Then a tall draconian entered. He wore a black uniform with gold symbols. His scales were dark red, unlike the others. Hold your fire, he ordered his soldiers. They stopped shooting immediately. The room went quiet. He-yun kept her sword ready. General Park, the draconian said with a small bow. After 3 centuries, we meet at last. I am Warlord Jinwoo. You're too young to have known me, He-yun said. Warlord Jinwoo smiled, showing sharp teeth. But my great-grandfather knew you well. You killed Emperor Darren and ended our empire. He-yun lowered her sword slightly. Emperor Darren was going to use the Star Eater weapon. It would have killed billions across 12 systems. So the stories say, Warlord Jinwoo replied. How convenient that only your version of history survived. Not just my version, Hei-yun said. She nodded to Tae-yun, who pressed a button on the computer. The screens lit up with old videos and reports. These records show what really happened, Hei-yun said. Your emperor was building a weapon that would have destroyed entire worlds, including some of your own colonies that opposed him. Warlord Jinwoo watched the screens. His face showed doubt for the first time. These could be fakes, he said, but he sounded uncertain. They're real, Tae-yun said, stepping forward. Just as real as the records showing she saved my grandfather's life. She had orders to kill all Lyrian leaders, but she refused. The other students stepped forward too. The records show she evacuated Arcani civilians before attacking military bases, Yuri said. And she stopped her own forces from bombing civilian areas, Ju added. Warlord Jinwoo looked at the files, then back at Hei-yun. If this is true, then why were you called the Destroyer? Because I destroyed the things that needed destroying, Hei-yun said. Weapons, military bases, battle fleets. Not people. Never innocent people. Suddenly, a new alarm sounded. The computer screen flashed. Incoming transmission, it announced. It's Commander Minji, Ju said excitedly. She received our signal. Warlord Jinwoo looked at the screen, then back at Hei-yun. Time was running out for his revenge. He had to decide what to believe. We'll continue this conversation, he said. The truth deserves to be known, whatever it may be. Alliance ships appeared on the radar, approaching fast. The final confrontation was coming. 5 Draconian ships now hovered above the academy. The main building shook as they fired weapons at the shields. The shields won't last long, Director Kang said. We need to evacuate. Hei-yun watched the ships through the window. Her old military mind was working again, seeing patterns and weaknesses. They're using Sky-Class battle cruisers, she said. Old models, but dangerous. Commander Minji handed out weapons to her team. We'll hold them off while the students escape through the underground tunnels. No, Hei-yun said. They'll expect that. We need to split up. She turned to the students who were gathered in the main hall. Fear showed on their faces. Even Tae-yun looked scared. Listen to me, Hei-yun said loudly. I know you're afraid, but today we fight together. She quickly divided them into groups. Younger students go with Teacher Min through the West Tunnel. Older students in 3 teams, North, East, and South exits. Tae-yun stepped forward. I'll lead the East team. Hei-yun nodded. Good. Ju, you take the South. Commander Minji, your team covers the main entrance. Everyone moved to their positions. Hei-yun felt strange giving orders to people who, just yesterday, had looked down on her for being human. The building shook again. The shields were failing. Go now, Hei-yun shouted. The groups rushed toward their exits. Hei-yun ran with Tae-yun's team toward the east wing. They were halfway there when a loud explosion rocked the building. Part of the ceiling collapsed, blocking their path. We're trapped, someone shouted. Hei-yun heard Draconian soldiers entering the building. They were coming their way. Quick, in here, Hei-yun said, pointing to a classroom. The 7 students followed her inside. Hei-yun locked the door and looked around. There were no other exits. What now, General? Tae-yun asked. For the first time, he wasn't being sarcastic. Hei-yun looked up at the ceiling. Air ducts. We can crawl through them. She pushed a desk under the vent and climbed up. The vent cover came off easily. She helped the others up one by one. The air ducts were small and dark. Hei-yun led the way, remembering the building layout like she had designed it herself. Maybe she had, in her past life. They heard Draconians below, searching rooms and shooting locked doors. They really want to find you, Tae-yun whispered. I destroyed their empire, Hei-yun whispered back. They've probably been looking for me for centuries. They reached a junction in the ducts. Hei-yun was about to turn right when she heard voices below. Find the human girl, A deep voice ordered. Our great-grandfathers failed to kill the destroyer. We will not fail. Hei-yun signaled the others to be quiet. Through a vent, she could see draconians in the hallway below. One wore a fancy uniform with many medals. Their leader. Suddenly, Tae-yun sneezed. The sound echoed in the metal duct. The draconians looked up. There, the leader shouted. In the air ducts. They fired their weapons at the ceiling. The duct began to break apart. Run, Hei-yun shouted. The students scrambled forward as the duct collapsed behind them. They fell through the broken metal into a hallway. Draconians were coming from both directions. Hei-yun activated her sword. Stay behind me. The first draconian reached them. Hei-yun moved with lightning speed, disarming him with one swing. More soldiers appeared, too many to fight alone. Tae-yun picked up the fallen draconian's weapon. I'll help you. Me too, said another student. Then another. Hei-yun smiled. Her former bullies were now ready to fight beside her. The draconians charged. Hei-yun led her small team into battle, moving like the general she once was. For the academy, Tae-yun shouted. Hei-yun blocked shots meant for her classmates. She had spent centuries fighting. Now she fought to protect those who had once looked down on her. And for the first time in her long life, that felt right.